famous emperors of Rome. The very first thing people think of when they hear the term ancient Rome are the leaders, both good and bad, of this great nation. After she became a monarchical dictatorship, leaving behind the ideas of state and senate, these men determined the fate of Rome. It is worth noting that every ruler of the Roman Empire had something about them that was unique to that particular ruler. The greatest of these leaders was the mighty Julius Caesar. He was a renowned military man, a charismatic speaker, and a great leader of men. Born in 100 BC, he rose to power and through the ranks as a Roman general. He took on the governorship of Hispania in 61 BC. After his pact with Pompey and Crassus in 59 BC, Julius Caesar assumed the role of consul of Rome. His next 8 years were spent in the conquest of Gaul, and he eventually assumed the role of absolute authority in the Roman hierarchy. Julius Caesar was also a very complex character and one who has been analysed throughout history. His intelligence and craftiness helped him to gain the edge in tactical and military situations. He was an expert strategist and was able to get out of seemingly disadvantageous situations using his amazing powers of negotiation. One such example of this is when he found himself captured by pirates while on his ocean travels. According to Julius Caesar, he convinced his captors to raise his own ransom and then organized the naval force to attack and kill them. Julius Caesar's status rose even further when he attacked and defeated Mithridates of Pontus, who had laid siege to several Roman cities. Soon after these military conquests, he cunningly arranged an agreement with two other powerful Roman allies, which allowed him to maintain a foothold in power, where he stayed until he could eventually assume total control of Rome. The reign of Caesar came to a premature end in 44 BC. His mistake was trusting others with his life. He allowed the wrong types of people into his circle, Brutus and Cassius. While Caesar might have known that his life was in danger, he was unable to determine who wanted to kill him. He was betrayed by those he trusted, and this trust was in the end a fatal character flaw. The assassination of Caesar during the Ides of March is considered to be one of the landmark events in ancient Roman history. It cemented what was already a firm transition into the era of the emperors and marked a further movement away from the idea of a republic. Furthermore, one great Roman emperor, and some might say the greatest, was the man known as Octavian, or otherwise known as Caesar Augustus. Augustus was a term given to him by the Senate as a way of honoring him. During his time in power, Augustus treated the Senate fairly and made sure to never promote himself like Julius Caesar had. One senses this was a wise decision, as it seemed to make him a popular figure. In the article 8 Things You May Not Know About Augustus, we learn that he was born in 63 BC, around the time that his adoptive father, Julius Caesar, was preparing to take full ownership of Rome. He is considered the very first emperor of Rome. Augustus lived in more modest quarters than other Roman emperors. He refused to refer to himself as a monarch and appeared more reasonable and humble than many other Roman rulers. His power, however, was greater than any other ruler before him. A noted tactician, Augustus was able to expand Rome's borders greatly. As a teenager, he went to war against Mark Antony and defeated him, and later expanded the Roman influence into Germania across the Rhine, and also south into Egypt and North Africa. However, Augustus did suffer some major defeats. In 9 AD, 3 divisions of Roman legions were destroyed when they were attacked by barbarian tribes across the Rhine. Augustus was so broken that he banged his head against the wall and cried, "Give me back my legions," a now famous line quoted in many works of literature. Another great and interesting Roman emperor was Antonius Pius, 86 AD to 161 AD. He was unique in his way of ruling Rome because he did not leave the country once. He promoted arts, music, books, culture, museums, science, and the glory of Rome. And there were also no records of any sign of military campaign or war during his reign. This also made him one of the only Roman emperors to not engage in conflict with the surrounding nations. Antonius Pius rewarded those who practiced the arts and honored those who taught rhetoric and philosophy. He was also involved in the construction of several temples, mausoleums, statues, and theatres. In Roman times, theatres were somewhat different from how we experience them today. They were large open stone structures where the seating was arranged in a circle, and the performance would take place in the center of the ring. Hadrian was another very interesting character within the Roman dynasty. Fascinated with the culture of Greece, he attempted to bring some of their ideas to the Roman world. Even though he was never technically given the status of heir to the throne by his predecessor Trajan, his wife declared that he was the emperor of Rome not long before Trajan died. Hadrian's rule was marked by his building of the Wall, a defensive fortification on the northern borders of the empire. It is marked as the furthest point north that Rome managed to expand. These fortifications still exist to this day and are considered to be one of the landmarks that noted where the borders of the Roman Empire once lay. Hadrian also rebuilt the Pantheon and constructed the Temple of Venus and Roma. Overall, he is noted for his more humble personage, which is evidenced by reports that he used to camp out with the soldiers after dark instead of lying in state in his luxurious palace. Marcus Aurelius might be one of the most tragic figures out of the line of Roman emperors. His rule was a difficult one, coming in during a period of instability and civil unrest. He battled the Parthians in the east, defeated the Marcomanni, Quadi, and Sarmatians in the Marcomannic Wars, and generally did his best to try and stave off civil war for as long as possible. Marcus Aurelius was a serious man and was partial to philosophy and pursuing ancient wisdom. What was unique about him could be said to be his desire to write. His book Meditations is still published and read to this day. It was written while he was on campaign between 170 and 180 AD and describes the nature of service to Rome, duty, and maintaining one's dignity even amid hardship and turmoil. After his death, his nickname stuck with him, the philosopher. The next interesting character, Emperor Trajan, presided over what was the height of Roman world dominance. Under him, Rome reached its peak. His reputation as a governor of Rome still endures to this day. Trajan's reforms, actions, and words were all respected by opponents, the Senate, the people, and the army. He was one of the most universally popular rulers in Roman history, and with good reason. His rule was philanthropic, and he sought to create a peaceable system of imperialist expansion rather than conquering through all-out war. After Trajan died, Rome never again reached the heights of dominance that it once did. His reign was the zenith of Rome's world rule. Other emperors were interesting, but not for their popularity or fame. They got their reputation of violence and lawlessness from their inability to think and rule. One of these awful rulers was the villainous Commodus, who ruled after Marcus Aurelius until he was assassinated in 193 AD. His lust for power and popularity was insatiable. Commodus could not follow in the footsteps of his wise father. Instead, he destroyed his legacy in a few bloody years and the throne that left Rome reeling. His decisions led to the destruction of Roman currency and the weakening of the empire which had taken others before him so long to build. Dio Cassius, a Roman scribe, wrote that Commodus turned Rome from a kingdom of gold to one of rust. Much of the administrative work of running the empire was left to servants and co-rulers. Commodus preferred to spend his time watching and organizing the Roman games, where he would hunt and kill animals for sport. He would also fight in the arena itself, although the men he fought were often handicapped themselves, making his victory inevitable. Eventually his colleagues grew tired of his rule, and he was assassinated while he was in the bath in 193 AD.